For starters, let me say that this is not a slander to Ultimate, an argument that it needs to change, or anything like that. I get the limitations of development and what Sakurai and the team were aiming for when making this. This is all nothing but just how I personally feel about the game, that's all. If you have different feelings about it, great. And if you disagree, then I don't know what you're doing here, because this is just my opinion, not an affirmation. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. I'm just going to jump right into it because I can't come up with a proper intro. So to put it simply, Ultimate for me has become repetitive and quite boring. Let me start from the beginning, Brawl. Brawl was my very first introduction to Smash. It wasn't the first I physically played, but upon its discovery it led me into exploring the entire Smash series, and eventually falling in love with it. But specifically, the thing that really got me into Smash was the Subspace Emissary. This grand adventure was my first true introduction to Smash Bros. Smash here for me was introduced as a story of different video game characters from different worlds uniting under one cause to stop the destruction of all of their worlds against one singular entity. All while weaponizing their individual abilities from their games as a means to fight. I absolutely fell in love with it and just the sheer crossover. It was this whole platforming movie adventure. It wasn't only about fighting opponents in matches for me, it was about, well, the crossover. Everything. All the modes were the whole game for me. Subspace, Classic Mode, Break the Targets, Events, etc. It was just a real, crossover game, and not just a crossover fighting game. This love carried over to the rest of the Smash games with this same notion in mind, namely 4 as that was the first game I had physically played. And although reduced it was the same, Classic Mode, Smash Run, Trophies, Movies, Photo Studio, etc. A fun crossover game. I loved watching 64 and Melee 2 on YouTube even when I didn't have the games. Or the platforms, Race to the Finish, the Adventure Mode, etc. And of course through Smash 4 I was yearning for a story mode like Subspace. The main thing this crossover game needed that was a big part of my interest. This is finally where Ultimate comes along. I remember the day like it was yesterday. When it was first announced I was so excited. It was a continuation of this series of crossover games that I had began to love thanks to Brawl and its story mode. I couldn't wait to see all the new and returning modes, the new characters and new game worlds. And most importantly I was hyped thinking about the return of a story mode. At first it was an exciting time. All the directs and new announcements. All of the returning characters and stages. The modes. It was fresh, it was hype. The game then eventually released and it was a blast. DLC was announced later on, and that cycle was hype. The game was just awesome. But then during the DLC cycle, somewhere around the middle, it started to fade. Suddenly this crossover game wasn't actually feeling like much of a crossover game. After some time I really began to just feel bored with it, and as time went on I started to realize why. Really the only thing about Ultimate is its roster, and nothing else. Every time you play the game it's just
3, 2, 1, go! Game!
Over and over again. The only unique modes we have are Classic Mode, Multi-Man Smash, Home Run Contest, and kinda sorta the Spirits modes. With World of Light itself acting as the stand-in for a story mode, but it's only a glorified board game with really the only unique thing being the bosses. The mode itself is just the same kind of normal matches with a few puzzles and that's it. Unlike other Smash games, especially Brawl, a lot was ripped. One of the main reasons I always got so excited for new characters within the Fighters Passes was because they were actually something new. It was like having an actual new mode come to the game with a new stage, music, new costumes and all. They were the only thing to temporarily break this repetitive cycle and bring something fresh yet again. But see, that's the thing, temporarily. It was good for a week and a half, but the hype for them quickly burned out upon release because not too long after they just become part of the cycle. And now we had to wait another few months for something new yet again, just to get old yet again. Even though they were something new, they weren't a new that lasted very long. They were just something that very quickly became the norm. And this is why Ultimate just doesn't feel complete for me. All we got are new fighters, and they don't last long because they're just that. Fighters. Fighters like everyone else that very easily join the cycle of repetitiveness. There's nothing else in the game to really keep them alive and keep it exciting. Nothing to actually make this crossover exciting for a fair amount of time. Ultimate has so little that that feeling of lasting just isn't there for me. Therefore the game just gets boring, despite the amazing roster that it has. Even with this grand roster, It's never anything but character model meets character model on a stage model. And the only actual crossovers with real interactions is in the trailers. The only real and unique modes are extremely limited and short. The game itself really doesn't have a lot to offer other than just the same matches over and over. Most of the modes are just normal matches but with a different format or rules. Other Smash games felt more special because they had a lot of unique, lengthy modes to offer, like Board the Platforms, Race to the Finish, Break the Targets, Events, Melee's Adventure Mode, etc. And especially Brawl Story Mode. They had things to really make the crossover feel special. Things to carry that basis and complete the puzzle. But with Ultimate, the development team spent so much time on the roster alone that unfortunately the game was left with no space for anything else. The only semblance of unique fun I can find is online, but even that gets boring very quickly, hence why I said semblance. Every other mode that I play is so short and small in number that I finish it too fast, and just like that I have nothing else to do because I've already done everything. The biggest thing for me that I always so desperately hoped Ultimate would have ever since the reveal is the grand return of a real story mode equivalent to the Subspace Emissary. Something like that would have lasted a significantly longer time because it's an entire, platforming, cutscene-filled adventure. Something like that doesn't just get old in a week. A story mode is something I've been holding on to for years, emphasis on years. If something like that were added, then I could truly call the game complete. The newness feeling of it would have lasted long enough for me to be satisfied when the game itself finally ends. But no, nothing. Just 80 plus characters and boom, the game is now finished. The ending itself wasn't even all that grand. It was a normal character presentation. We only got 3 Mii costumes, with 2 of them being first-party hats that really should have been in the base game already, and the only thing they really did was go over Ultimate stats. Then just like that, it was over. Sora was of course a big character reveal, but there was no real grand ending, nothing. Not even a special reel of some kind, like looking back on all the trailers or something like that. I can hardly feel for Ultimate's ending because of this. I don't feel satisfaction, I just feel sadness. I feel left alone with an unfinished game. A game that's really just a crossover fighting game, and not a crossover game. I guess in a way you could say that I'm actually disappointed or upset with the game now. To think that in the beginning I was so hyped for the game when it was first revealed, to now just feeling largely empty with it, unlike the previous titles. And it's such a shame because I really do love this game, in particular just for the roster. It really is a phenomenal achievement. The roster is the only reason I keep coming back despite how empty I begin to feel with this game every time. I just don't want to waste this game because yeah, it's amazing. Yet at the same time, so bland. I just hope that someday in the future, I can finally get the perfect Smash game with all of the past modes restored, and a true story mode. The perfect crossover game.